else signed $100 million contract for their podcast?
No.
Kelsey Brothers
Yeah.
yesterday.
I think we should totally get 100 million contract too.
I think so. That's what
We're recording, by the way.
Oh.
Yes, we are. Yes. So let's see here. I just want to make sure I got the right.
So this is going to be sent to everybody. Like,
What we're doing right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
okay,
Yeah. So
we're waiting for our contract.
we're looking for 100 million contract. Okay, folks. Some of you may have contacts. The Kelsey brothers we're talking about. Travis, you know,
Yeah.
he's dating Taylor Swift.
Yep,
Jason is this dude who just retired from the Philadelphia Eagles. And
that's right.
100 million?
100 million. We don't expect that much. Maybe half.
Okay, half. We're outside of the Equal Justice Initiative's spectacular museum, the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. And you can see on the window behind Dr. Terry and me a reflection of the sky. It's like very beautiful out. But
It's hot.
It's hot. It's damn hot.
It's
Okay.
messing my hair up. It's very hot. It's humid. It's like 78% humidity. It's going to be 97 today.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it is
it's
so hot. We're in the shade, but still it's hot in the
Yeah,
shade.
it's hot.
We wanted to do a podcast sitting right here outside this museum because this museum, in the words of one of our community members, Ellen Ferguson, who knows museums all over the world, she's been involved in the museum industry forever, has said it is one of, if not the most important museum in America today.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about the Equal Justice Initiative because it is a great model and inspiration for us at Common Power. And is part of what we talk about with people on the trip when we do these learning tours, and we're here with the Lakers. And they're
inside.
Yeah,
right now.
They're going through the museum right now. And so we're going to share a little bit of things that we say usually on these walking tours, but we'll also go into a little bit more depth because we want to connect it specifically to Common Power. So Terry, what is the Equal Justice Initiative?
The Equal Justice Initiative started in 1989 with Bryan Stevenson. So many of you may have read Just Mercy. If you haven't, you should. There's a movie about his life as well. He was a Harvard-trained attorney who came from Delaware.
Okay.
Who talks about how he went to a segregated school when he was growing up, and he realized that Harvard was not training him to do the kind of law that he wanted to do. He really wanted to begin to attack racial disparities in the criminal justice system and fix the system. And I mean, I use that lightly because people say the criminal justice system is broken. It's designed to do exactly what it's supposed to do. It starts as a slave patrol system, and it is a kind of inherently racist system. So I should say he has sought to redo this system, to recreate it. So he comes to Alabama as an attorney, and he works with one other person, and he begins to take on death penalty cases and try to overturn the death penalty charges against people who were innocent. And he had some success and he had some losses. And it's become now kind of institutionalized work. And what he has done is created this army of civil rights attorneys who have gone into the world, much like a model that Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston did when they were at Howard University and created the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And he's created these civil rights attorneys who have gone out to try to right the wrongs that the criminal justice system has done. It is, for instance, because of Bryan Stevenson and the Equal Justice Initiative attorneys that you can no longer execute children. And that was this century that ruling was passed out. And then they went back to the United States Supreme Court because then what jurisdiction started to was give life sentences to children. And they argued that that was tantamount to death, a death penalty. And so now they have this group of attorneys understanding the connection between history and teaching people how we arrive at our modern world and pushing them to action. Sounds familiar, the things that we do at Common Power.
Yeah.
They've created this museum, and the museum is a legacy museum that is from enslavement to mass incarceration, and it draws a through line so that people can visually see and understand how what we are witnessing today, the kinds of conflation of race and criminality that we see, the fact that the criminal justice system really is biased against people of color, how we arrived at that, and how it has its roots in slavery. And the museum is just one of the things that they have.
Yeah, they have these 3 spectacular sites here. Museum, an outside memorial that's called the National Memorial for Peace and Justice that is honors lynching victims, and then a brand new sculpture garden here that is honors the whole body of resistance for freedom fighters. There's a lot of things that I want to kind of try to touch base on for the connection of Equal Justice Initiative and Common Power. So Equal Justice Initiative is founded by Stevenson in 1989. I've looked through their reports, their financial reports, and they don't really become a big national endeavor. Because they're focused on Alabama.
Right.
They don't become a big national endeavor until really the early 2000s. So about 10, 15 years, all right? Then they become an enormous international endeavor beginning in the 2010s when this Supreme Court case that they win, which ends executions of young people. And they also begin to post markers in this town to bring attention to the slavery, because this is a town that's completely marked by Confederate monuments. Montgomery, Alabama, is where first capital of the Confederacy. Currently still the state capital of Alabama, where there's a state where we're sitting in right now, where diversity, equity, and inclusion offices are banned in public office, in universities and state offices. There's no reproductive rights for anybody in this state right now. All right. So we're in a place where it's always been very, very difficult for freedom and justice. And they found it. They do this work. They become big in the 2010s. Then they take another leap in the 2013s when they start to put these markers up around town and then begin to produce a report, an annual report. And they are now produce massive educational materials, tons and tons and tons of stuff. So we've had the privilege to meet with a number of people from EJI over time in our years coming here. And what they consistently tell us is that they started out as a legal organization that came to the conclusion that they should do the legal work and they needed to do educational work, right? Like it wasn't enough to just do the legal work. They had to prepare people for it.
They had to prepare people for it, and they had to create a public that is on their side, that understands the work that they're doing, because otherwise they are lawyers sitting in a room and they're working against, or going to court, they're working against this kind of popular public narrative that says that what they're saying is not true, or that the onus should be on the people who have been victimized by this criminal justice system. So they knew that they had to educate the public so that they could change people's hearts and minds to make the work that they're doing easier.
And they felt that they could not, that just attacking the courts was not going to get, talking through the legal system, which the NAACP and Legal Defense Fund had done in the 1920s, 30s, 40s to get to the Brown v. Board of Education.
Right.
But
decades long.
But that model, the courts are actually going the other way. They're going more conservative. Like there's an open question whether or not they'd win that case before the Supreme Court today about execution of minors, right?
Absolutely. And actually the Supreme Court recently, and I don't know the details of it, but they ruled something with Kavanaugh, I think, writing the decision on this, to refute the portion that says you cannot put children in jail forever. I think they passed something a couple of years ago that has kind of tried to reverse that, this court.
So Equal Justice Initiative model of essentially education and action. We have a similar model and we're inspired by them, but ours is with the word "to" in the middle. Education to action. Because
we have an expectation. So when people come into the work that we're doing, we say, and I mean, I think they do to some degree too, but we are just very.
But they don't expect people to necessarily become lawyers per se.
No.
Our action is more doable by everybody.
Our action is more doable, and we give people the pathways to action. So we say, hey, if you want to come with us, and we have all these onboarding things, come on a learning tour, go to a lecture, and then go knock on doors with us. Go text, go phone bank, do those things that
run for office, city, for the school board, whatever, right?
Be involved in some of our programs that we have with youth. So we're giving people kind of those avenues. But a key element of that is we are able to take advantage of the resources and the spaces that the EJI has to help in our launching and our catalyzing of folks. That's why we're sitting here right now, why our group from Lakers is inside while we're out here.
Yeah. So when we do our walking tour, which we did with the Lakers last night, and yesterday's podcast was touched on that, we stop at the Equal Justice Initiative and talk about their location. Where is the Equal Justice Initiative office in the landscape of Montgomery?
So their original office, which still stands and they still have, is on Commerce Street. It's down the street from the banks of the Alabama River. We talked about that yesterday, where enslaved adults and children disembarked slave ships and railroad trains and were marched up Commerce. When they were marched up Commerce, the slave enslavers, the slave traders, would put them in what were considered warehouses, but really jails. And one of those former jails that was owned by John Murphy, who is touted here in Alabama as just a cotton broker and an innovator. That's what his marker says today that we read. He owned the building that the EJI has their law offices in now. So the EJI has chosen to put their law offices in a former slave pen, a slave jail.
When you think about EJI is one of, I don't know how many are on this or in this bucket, but one of a very small number of organizations that we at Common Power look at and we say, look, nobody's perfect, but
We love them
yeah.
like so much. And they have received us well.
Uh-huh.
And so, for instance, we had our educator symposium last July for the Institute, this past July, just
Yeah,
a few weeks
it
ago.
was yeah,
It was a month ago, right.
exactly.
And they are closed. The EJI facilities are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. They open them up special for our educators, for our 32 educators who were able to come here to the museum and to go to the lynching memorial and to the sculpture garden with only one other group of educators from New Jersey, 13 teachers, and they had the entire facility to
Right in
themselves.
here?
Right in here.
Uh-huh.
Entire facility to themselves. It was, because when you go in here, it's open to the public, so there are people in there. I took the opportunity to take advantage of that in this way. At one point, there's a place where you walk through and there are heads on either side, and it's supposed to be water, and it represents the Middle Passage, people being shipped from West Africa to the New World. I sat down right there.
Did you?
I sat down because there was nobody else here. I sat down in the middle of the people and I was eye level with them, and you could look at them, and it was an unbelievable experience.
Whoa.
And other people I saw from our group were sitting down in the museum. It's not something you normally would do, not on
Wow.
benches, on the floor, because they gave us an opportunity for the space to be ours for that time. So, and they didn't charge us for it. It was not, they wanted that because we're working with teachers.
Yeah. And so that, for them, education and action, for us, education to action.
Right.
But it is the pairing of those two.
It is.
And they are doing more and more with educators,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
In some respects, we're ahead of them though, on the educators, okay? And that we're bringing people here on these trips,
Mhm.
and we've built these educators for democracy cohort,
Mhm.
right?
And they like what we're doing with educators.
Yeah.
That's why they open their doors for us.
That was who they opened them up for.
Correct.
It was the educator symposium.
Yeah.
And so we've gotten to know their senior staff member who works in that area, and it's clear that they want to do that. There's a budding substantial partnership there.
100%. Yeah, they really, and our values align, I think, in the things we're doing. And when we were here with the educators, the EJI is leading by example in a lot of the ways that we do. So they have created a health clinic. It's a free health clinic for formerly incarcerated folks and for other economically marginalized people. And some of the people from the health clinic came and spoke to our teachers to tell them about the work that they're doing and why they're doing it. It was incredibly inspirational.
So the two other things I want to touch base on, and we're sitting outside. It's 97 degrees out here.
Jeez.
Well,
We love you.
and Perry also hasn't eaten for about 20 hours.
Mhm.
All right, we've been so busy. And there's a great restaurant here. So we're
You
gonna,
can smell it.
we can't wait to
Mhm.
go in there. And that restaurant is part of the EJI kind of complex, their
Mhm.
system. It's set up, it's staffed. by
It's Black
people.
owned, I think.
Oh,
The
of
restaurant itself.
course.
Yeah, and it's kind of regional foods. And I heard that it was, I guess, Brian Stevenson's one of his favorite restaurants, so he asked them to.
Oh,
be
really?
Here, yeah.
And so Stevenson hires a lot of people in town here. And then, and this is a point of connection to Common Power in that we seek to do the same, hires people and then treats them well.
Treats them well. I mean, we see people in here, and actually I just met one of the women who just started a month ago, and she said she feels like she has a new family here.
Oh,
So, and the one of the things we tell our groups is the Alabama minimum wage is $7.50. $7.50. And several years ago, when we had spoken with one of the high school kids who worked here, he was paying them $20 an hour then in Alabama.
yeah.
I mean, that's almost 3 times the minimum wage. And so who knows what it is now, but they just do things well and right. And it is kind of the way that we think about they hire a lot of young people, developing next generation leadership. They make sure that they are paid a truly living wage.
Yes. And as we're sitting here, there's staff around us that are making sure that people are taken care of.
Mhm.
There is a shuttle they have these shuttles that run between their
Just around.
locations. Exactly. They run from here to their two other locations, the shuttles that run every 10 minutes. They have a restaurant right here.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally transforming Montgomery's economic landscape and the narrative. Because the narrative here now is about both the Civil War and the Confederacy and civil rights,
Yeah.
and today the fight for justice.
Mhm.
And Stevenson in Just Mercy identifies changing the narrative as one of the four things he says, like, you got to work towards.
Yeah.
And changing the narrative is not a 3-day endeavor.
No.
Okay.
No, it's a multi-tiered endeavor that requires all of the people he has doing this. It requires the donations that he's gotten over the years to be able to do it. It requires doing it well,
Yeah.
which they have done. So, and then you can begin to kind of transform, you know, and you hear the car coming by. They also work a lot with educators because they get, like we do, that when you can help an educator, it is exponential what they can do in their community. They go back to 100 students this year, and then more next year, more next year, more next year.
Right. So if you want to change the narrative, you can't just win court cases. And we in Common Power can't seek to only win elections. So our field work is our ultimate product. It's the thing that we drive people towards. But we know that multiple steps get people there and are essential, education being part of that. So when the Equal Justice Initiative is so powerfully transformed and is transforming Montgomery that sidewalks have been redone because of EJI's presence. They have bought all these locations. There's massive convention center being built right over here. They have this health clinic. They have another space in town that they're building. They have 2 sites already created. They
increased tourism, which has caused the proliferation of new restaurants and other businesses to support that.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that Brian Stevenson and whoever is part of his kind of circle of leadership has audacious visions and goals. All right. Like Barack Obama talked about in his book, The Audacity of Hope, about having audacious kind of sensibilities and believing you can achieve that. And
no ceiling.
No ceiling.
Yeah, the sky. I love the sky in the background because it's that concept. The sky is the limit. You can do anything you can dream of. You can dream it, you can make it happen. It's one of the things I love about being at Common Power, because I think we share that philosophy, all of us. If we can dream it, let's do it.
And the only way that that's possible, in my view, is to have the personnel and leadership in the organization and to have the community support and apparatus.
The support and the belief from the community, 100%. Yeah.
So, and we were talking with the Lakers today about how important it is to do our work independent from you and me, from universities, right? And so to be an organization, Common Power, that has independence from any academic space, but nonetheless speaks into that space. To work with partner orgs, to work for elections that we feel called to work for, it gives us the ability to have that kind of sense of like, we can do this. If we can dream it, we can do it.
We can do it. And the importance, just to stay on that for a second, about having that independence from academic space, means that there is no strangling of any truth that we want to give, so we can speak truth, because we know that so many universities right now across the country are strangling it, are legalizing it, are firing educators. And so we still have a very strong academic base, and we can integrate that truth and also make it accessible beyond the boundaries of the campus. Anybody can go to our stuff.
Anybody can go to our stuff. Anybody can make a difference. Anybody. I love that, like, EJI, incredible model for us. And also it occurs to me just how accessible our pathways to action are.
They're so accessible, and we will make it happen. If somebody says, well, I can't do XYZ, or we've had people, some of our educators or others, who say, can I bring my child? I don't have childcare. Yeah, bring them, come knock on doors. We make it accessible.
So this is what we actually dream of. Charles and Larcy and me and Terry, is that we dream of this kind of transformation. I don't know if I would level it as just a dream anymore for us.
No, we make dreams come true. I mean, things that, I think of just what we've put out there and then we move it to action. That's the other thing about being like in a corporation or an academic setting. You're going to have 150 meetings about it and it may or may not happen and this, that, and the other. We meet about it and we bounce ideas off of each other. We do the research, we do the investigation, we talk to people we consider mentors and advisors, but then we make it happen.
Mhm.
And we don't stall. We make it happen. And if there are adjustments that need to be done, we make those adjustments. So, and things come to fruition. Just taking our educators was just an idea. And now we've had what, 6 cohorts?
Yeah.
I mean, you had an idea when you started Common Power. You and Charles were like, wouldn't that be great if we can? And you have, and now we are in what, 14 states with thousands of volunteers this year?
Yeah. And it's not when you have an idea, you then have more ideas.
Yeah.
Right. And you also bring people in who then say like, I got ideas.
Yeah.
Right. I got
Yeah.
ideas.
And we love people who have lots of ideas.
So I think that's part of the what we do. We love.
There
I used to say that as a department chair at UW. Like, I love people that do good work. I love even more people who have good ideas. Okay.
Because they're not burdened by these notions of, oh, I better not do that or say that. And I think we at Common Power create a space that says, tell us what you think. What should we do?
Yeah.
What are your ideas?
Yeah. So
we clearly love our work.
So you know what, to wrap this up, I think that part of these trips is the history and the now and the people who come on them and the people we see. But I think there's a bit of it for me too, of like standing in front of Equal Justice Initiative or coming to the museum and just saying, this is ahead of us chronologically. So they're doing things that we are not doing. But in terms of audacity of vision, like we're there.
100%. We are there. And we're there. We recognize it. They appreciate the stuff that we're doing. And they are an example of never being able to dream too big.
Yeah.
So
all right.
That's what we seek to be.
Now we're going to go have some awesome lunch.
So excited. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. High five again. All right. See you later, folks.
Waiting on that contract, 100 million for the podcast.